Hi. So let me begin my talk with a simple question. Do you think that you can operate an e-commerce business with Flutter today? The answer to that is actually pretty simple, maybe. But the difficult question is, can you get everything done in just a few days? Because that's what we had to do, and that's what this talk is really about, because today I'm going to talk about embedded Flutter on the Raspberry Pi 5 platform and how it helped us simplify our daily e-commerce operations. And in this talk, I'm going to focus more on embedded Flutter and the Pi 5 itself, and how great of a platform it is for Flutter, and what you can build with it today on your own. A few things about me. I'm Michał. I'm a Chief Executive Officer and founder of a company called Pineboards. I bootstrapped this company and another one last year with no business background and experience, really. I'm based in Kraków, Poland. I'm 27. Before I got into the business world, I was just a regular software engineer who worked on mobile with Flutter daily, and I focused a lot on embedded in my free time. My main initial background is native iOS development, and I transitioned to Flutter in 2020, and I'm never going back. I'm also very passionate about electronics, especially the Raspberry Pi ecosystem. So, how did it all get started for me? It all started last year at FlutterCon 2023, where I presented my side project, which, using Flutter Web, allowed me to build a custom Android system image that you can use to run any Android app in your car. And after the conference, I realized that it was too good of an opportunity to pass on, so I decided to commercialize this. And in just a few months, I started selling devices that essentially bundled all the hardware together. So you had a computer, an NVMe drive, a LTE modem, CarPlay receiver, and whatever. So just take it in, plug it in, run the Flutter app in the browser, and enjoy Netflix in Drive on an autopilot drive into the sunset. Yeah, but there was one thing about this business, is that it didn't feel particularly safe, because Tesla, like all other companies, leadership can change, they can block certain things, regulatory approval can disable browser in driving, so it's not something that I really wanted to feed my family from long term. So I essentially used the money from the devices to found a second, safer business, and that's why we are here today. So moving a few months into the future, the Raspberry Pi launched a new board, the Raspberry Pi 5. It had a faster CPU, much faster GPU that can handle two 4K displays at the same time. And it also had more I/O, more connectivity options. It was priced slightly higher, but it was still a very good value, because for just 50 euros, you can get a 4-core ARM computer with up to 8 gigs of RAM, that can run your Flutter apps without any problems. And given the extra performance, it is actually a much better platform for complex Flutter apps. And a quick side note, this is the 5th generation of the computer, but this is the first one that had a power button added on the board. I mean, I don't know why it took them 5 generations, but they finally did. So, a little question for the audience. If you ever experienced a Raspberry Pi before, what was the biggest flaw of the consumer Pi before the Pi 5 came out? Any ideas? What? Not memory issues, exactly, but storage issues, because you had essentially threads like this. Pi 4 burning through SD cards like crazy, SD cards being corrupted. So it wasn't like very production ready, the consumer Pi. You had to like get into custom boards, the compute module 4, and build your own electronics. So it was a little bit hard. But the Pi 5 changed that because they've added PCI Express. And PCI Express allows you to basically add your PC peripherals like NVMe storage, fast network cards, SCSI controllers for servers, whatever you can think of. But there was one little problem with that. There were no PCIe expansion boards available at launch. And there was no documentation for companies like mine to start building those accessories. So it feels like they rushed the board into production without following all the steps. So we noticed a huge opportunity, and we made our own documentation. We reverse engineered the entire pinout, and it just worked. So essentially, we beat the manufacturer to the market with accessories for their own products by 7 months. And for the person who answered the question, if you ever get a Pi 5, it's an NVMe board for you. So our first two products launched in November last year, shortly after the Pi 5 became available on the end of October. And since our company didn't exist back then, we had to market them somehow. So we went to the community and we shipped engineering samples to all the YouTubers, press publications, wherever. And they essentially did all the marketing for us. And the moment we launched, it very quickly went viral. So we had like over 2 million combined hits on the site when it launched, and we sold everything that we have instantly. So as you can see, our timeline was moving pretty rapidly. So, and it was just me and my business partner. So our entire e-commerce took me less than a day to set up. And I'll give you a few pro tips if you ever end up going through something crazy like this. Just rely on Shopify or some other software as a service platform. Don't bother with building your e-commerce with open source solutions, because they are not actually free. You only get a very basic template, like the order processing pipeline or whatever, but you don't have invoicing, you don't have payment gateway support, you don't have DHL integrations, whatever. You would have to end up paying for all of this stuff, and it would be also lower quality. So it doesn't make sense. For international shops, Stripe is the best payment gateway that you can use. And in case you ever decide to build a Flutter app around your e-commerce store, it has a great SDK, so it's bulletproof. If you start building, you have to ship quickly and constantly iterate, because your store will never be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. Because if you have a great product, it will essentially sell itself. I mean, for the first month, we just used to have something like this, and we got thousands of orders. Just a basic render, a few lines of text, purchase button, everything. After 9 months, I've iterated over a little bit, got a better camera, started putting more focus into quality, but that wasn't necessary on day one. If we were to do it like this initially, we would just waste a month of sales, essentially. And continuing on the crazy sprint, we shipped over 4,000 boards in just 2 weeks, and it was only me and my business partner. And another tip, if you ever plan to get into e-commerce, don't do it before Christmas, because it's particularly terrible, and it makes it much more stressful and much harder. So if you can take the heat, avoid at all costs. Launch at spring or something. Those 2 weeks were one of the most intense weeks of my life. But we also made a ton of mistakes that took a while to rectify, because we didn't have any processes in place. It was all chaotic. So some people got the wrong stuff, someone ordered 1 and got 10, and it was all on us. And we were shipping to 110 countries. So if you assume that you have 600 packages on this, this is like 15 or 20,000 euros in FedEx labels. So it's like very expensive mistakes. And after that came all the paperwork. Because I made an executive decision to ship everything first so that people would get their stuff before Christmas. And now I had to issue thousands of invoices before the end of the calendar year, which was a nightmare. And since Shopify is mostly focused on international stores, there was no plug-and-play solution that handled all the edge cases well, even for invoicing. For European Union, you have 3 edge cases. You can have packages that leave the EU, you can have retail customers with a different VAT rate for every country, and for businesses in the EU, you actually have to verify the customer data and refund the tax. And in theory, every single invoicing mistake in this flow would be a crime if the German tax office found out, for instance. So this was the situation, essentially. And this is where the technical part of the talk starts, because Flutter rescued us. And before I dive into our app, we built our internal app very quickly. And it's still running after 9 months. But I think that there are a few things that you should consider when you build an app quickly, so that you don't end up throwing it away after a few months with regret. Build using the tools you know best. Use the same architecture you would use at work, but just cut out all the excess that you don't need. And please don't put too much focus on state management. It can be simple. Just use a simple qubit or a basic view model with a few data streams, and it's more than enough. The only thing you really have to think about is separating the UI from the business logic, because if you make this mistake, you are not going to recover from it. The app is essentially is a lost cause. And one thing that I always tell people is avoid stateful widgets unless your UI components need them. You will thank me later, because it makes your app much easier to debug. So, why did we create an internal Flutter app for our company? Because, first of all, e-commerce tooling is crap. And there wasn't a single product that would get all the stuff done for us. So no matter what tools we chose, even if we chose to pay for them, we would have to use a few of them at once. One for invoicing, one for shipping, one for packing orders. So we essentially had a situation where every packing station had a 27-inch 4K monitor with 4 Chromium windows open, each running a different stupid web app that had its own issues. So it wasn't really sustainable, and it wasn't usable when you had to pack a few hundred packages every day. And another thing about third-party tools is that they don't always grow with your business. It's hard to adopt them, so you are locked into what someone thinks is right. And if something is truly yours, you can always adapt it to new processes. So, on the right, you have a very first screenshot of our app. It's just an order list, but that's all that we needed as our entry point. Shopify has a great REST API that gave us all the orders, product, and customer metadata. So essentially everything that we needed to process the order. And since we had full control over the data we got from the e-commerce solution, we could easily map it to whatever our invoicing software needed to consume. And we could also use it to pack orders as well, because the app already had all the order information. So we lost 2 Chromium windows with this basic app. And on top of that, it did all the dirty accounting logic for us. So it handled all invoicing edge cases based on the country, based on whether if it's a business or not. So it was all done automatically. I didn't even have to think about it. And after that, the invoices were dispatched automatically to our customers from the app itself. So essentially, one order took 3 or 4 clicks. Just enter the order number, create the customer in the invoicing software, create an invoice, it's done. And you also have the preview, so in the meantime, you can pack it. So it was a huge time saver for us. And this simple app, in its very first iteration, saved us hundreds of hours already. And after I managed to iron out all the issues in the accounting logic, I managed to issue thousands of invoices on the very last day of the year, just in time to close the books. And I don't think it would be possible with any third-party software that you have on the market. So we essentially tested it on production, and it went pretty well. So now we are marching into 2024. And we had a new set of problems to solve. Our app ran on macOS only. And adding new workstations was expensive, and machines were pretty much overkill, because you don't need a lot of horsepower to run an app like this. So enter embedded Flutter on the Raspberry Pi 5. I mean, it's an obvious choice for us because we make dedicated hardware for the Pi 5, and we support customers with building their own. And I think that this is the best platform for embedded Flutter today, because the Raspberry Pi is the world's most popular computer with over 60 million units sold to date. And it's also a European product, so you have great software, great support, and a great community around it. It's very cheap because you can get started for just 50 euros. And it runs Linux, so it is more than capable of running most Flutter projects. And the GPU in the new one is pretty powerful too. And it's also, in my opinion, one of the best platforms if you want to interact with external hardware, because everything is open and there are no platform restrictions. So it's much easier to deal with third-party devices instead of building on mobile or Windows or any other platform. And the best thing is that, given how popular the platform is, people are building everything with it. So, for instance, you can have an edge AI camera that is doing live image recognition. We even have 3 products with this. So you have a tensor processing unit from Google with 4 TOPS or 8, or a 13 TOPS device with an Israeli accelerator. And this running on the edge, it gives you enough power to run a simple 3-camera self-driving algorithm in the car. And this is let me remind you, this is a $50 computer. So it's amazing. A lot of companies are also building vending machines that have Raspberry Pis inside. This is a real example of something that is deployed in Poland. If you need to buy some flowers late at night because you messed up. And this thing already has a Raspberry Pi inside, but it doesn't run Flutter yet. They are using embedded Chromium with standard web technologies, and they have a dedicated local backend that interacts with all the hardware, etc. So if they chose Flutter in the first place, it would have been a much easier product to build because you can interface with hardware directly, and it's much faster. Some people are also building 1.2 petabyte storage servers with those computers. I mean, they do it for science. And 2 weeks ago, I managed to fire up a desktop GPU on it, and we are playing and you can run 3D games on it. So with a little bit of emulation, I'm hoping we can get Crysis later this year. And the best thing for you as a software engineer is that you don't even have to think about the hardware. You can just focus on what you do best and build the software. Because the platform is very mature, and in every region of the world, there is a company that is authorized by Raspberry Pi to deliver you the hardware you need already. So all you need on your own is essentially a €100 dev kit that has a computer, a touch screen, and then build your kiosk, whatever, and then outsource it to someone who will build the rest. You don't have to be a master of everything. So, how do you get started with Flutter on the Pi 5? If you don't need hardware support, it's usually easier to get started with Flutter Web because you can develop it on everything, test it everywhere, and it's fast enough that you wouldn't notice the difference for simple kiosk apps, etc. Web runs well on the latest hardware, but you are very limited in terms of hardware access. So like programmable inputs and outputs, AI on the edge, cameras, payment terminals, etc. For this stuff, you should opt for Flutter on Linux. And a lot of talks on embedded Flutter, they give you a recipe on how to set up the development environment on the Pi itself. And I think that it's a little bit hurtful for the developer because developing software on such a slow device is not really fun. So I assume that most Flutter developers have Apple laptops that have ARM chips by now. So it's the same architecture as the Pi 5, so you can just put Ubuntu in a VM and develop there. And it wouldn't be much different than the Pi. And once you are done with the feature, just put it on your simple, basic development kit and run it, test it. A notable mention is that there is a quick script from guys at SnapX that allows you to set up the embedded Flutter development setup pretty quickly. I linked it on the slides, and it also has all the scripts that you need for kiosk mode. So it will automatically configure your OS to boot up into your Flutter app with a single command. So it's like very, very easy to work on. Another mention is that there is a custom Flutter embedder that is called FlutterPy that achieves the same thing, but it runs the Flutter app instead of the entire desktop environment on the Pi, which is technically pretty interesting, but it's not officially supported. So it's fun to play with, but don't put it on production. You don't want that. You don't want a headache. And nice thing about Flutter and Friends is that tomorrow there is a workshop by guys from Snap that will teach you how to get a Pi 5 set up for development and run a simple app. That's why I decided not to waste too much time onto this, because that's just like repeating the same stuff over and over again. Okay, let's dive back to our app. External hardware access with Pi 5 is just too easy. We had another problem because our lineup has grown from 2 products to around 20. So we had a lot of packing issues with people getting wrong stuff, things getting messed up in the warehouse, etc. So what's the solution? I mean, it's a barcode scanner, essentially. You have to scan every item that you put in the box. And how can you support barcode scanning with a hardware scanner on the Pi 5 with embedded Flutter? There is 0 extra work necessary, because all those scanners, they just act as USB keyboards. So there are no drivers needed, and it works out of the box. All you have to do is just listen for the keyboard events that you get from the framework and pass them accordingly. So you can use the hardware keyboard class and just have a listener and do it in the background, and it will just work. And it took me like 1 evening to get it all implemented, so, with all of the logic. And even if you are like extra lazy, there is a package on PAP that has all the EN logic already implemented on it. And this leaves us with one last problem to solve. There's one last Chromium window left for creating shipping documentation, so like FedEx, customs, and all of the other stuff. And there was a huge problem. Initially, I thought that it didn't really make any sense, because FedEx and DHL in Europe have APIs based on SOAP. So it's XML, not REST, like ancient history. And it brought me back to corporate days. And since we are running a fully fledged Linux system, we have all of the Dockers and other things that we can just run behind our app. So I've decided to create a very simple Spring Boot-based Java app that converted the APIs from SOAP to REST, and it was running in the background all the time. And I put a link to a library that will let you do it in a few hours if you ever stumble upon a problem like this. There was a lot of custom logic involved, sadly, because for packages you need to fill out electronic customs paperwork. So that was a huge pain for us, but that is not really important. The last thing that we had to do is actually print those labels. So you have a USB printer that you just connect to a computer, and you print. And normally you would say, I need a driver that opens a USB device, starts a serial connection with the printer, and starts bouncing data back and forth to communicate, set everything up. No. You are running on Linux. Just use shell. It's the most basic thing you can do, and one of the advantages of an open platform. So there is no need for custom plugins, and if you can do it in a command line, you can already integrate it into your Flutter app with no issues. Let me explain quickly. First step, you get a text with the label from your API. On the slide, you have an example of how a very simple label looks like. And later, you just SSH to your Pi, connect the printer, see if it's detected. It's a single command. And on the second part of the slide, this is the entire command for printing this label with the set printer. And the step 3, integrate it into your Flutter app. There is a package that lets you run a shell process from within your existing Flutter app. It also works on macOS, so it's like chef's kiss. And you can, and it's all native .NET, no platform dependencies, etc. So essentially, integrating a printer in Flutter Embedded, I would say that it's the same kind of effort as like integrating a share sheet into a native mobile app with Flutter. So it's like very, very basic 50 lines of code if you have the file. So conclusion time. Embedded Flutter is a great platform to build for, especially if you need to work with peripherals. And the barrier of entry is very low if you know basics of the operating system. Building devices for specific applications required by enterprise customers is both easy and cheap. Deployments are much easier than on mobile because you can essentially build a CI pipeline that generates an entire OS image with your Flutter app in minutes with GitHub Actions. And if you are creative and think outside the box, you can achieve basically anything you want without having to learn embedded UI frameworks like Qt, which is huge because a lot of companies started dropping Qt because of lack of engineers, and they moved into HTML, which created a different set of issues that you already know how it works. And with Flutter, you can just take the cheapest one, 2 gigs of RAM, run the app, it will be smooth, no issues, no problems. So, what Flutter did for us? It essentially saved us and made the entire thing possible from the operations perspective. It made it possible for us to quickly scale our business and focus on what's really important, which is driving sales and building new products. The app has processed more than 7,000 orders already, and it's still running strong without major issues. This means over 40,000 individual boards were dispatched from the simple app that I've shown you. And right now, we can also quickly add new processes to our app as we grow, because we own it. Most of the stuff mentioned today was relevant when I submitted the talk. It was a few months ago. Right now, we have 12 distributors, and we are not doing so much retail anymore. But there is no problem in taking the app that we already have and building a tool that easily allows you to pack 1,000 items in a single order. It would just take a bit of UI finesse, but I don't need to deploy an entire CRM and pay someone for it. So a few last takeaways. You can explore our lineup at pineboss.io. We have a lot of interesting boards if you'd like to try them. I strongly recommend getting a Pi 5 just to explore what is possible today with embedded Flutter. And I really hope that together we can make Flutter a go-to UI framework for embedded projects. Because I've seen too many clients struggling with other technologies in the past. And those problems simply don't exist in Flutter. Thank you. So, any questions, maybe?
So why would we choose this one over Android devices that are very cheap? Why should we choose these devices over very cheap Android devices? Because we build other apps?
Those cheap Android devices are obsolete the moment you get them. And Raspberry Pis also run Android. So you can very quickly compare how much faster embedded Flutter is than a low-cost Android device.
Can you run APKs on those?
Yeah. On the, if you install an Android image on the Pi 5, you can run APKs as well.
Okay.
So for every question, you get a board, essentially. So yeah, I think you are first.
So my question is, how do you identify if there are two and more hardware devices connected to your Raspberry Pi? Because you said that you will have to work on the keyboard events. So is there a standard that everyone will get their own set of keys that they can work with?
So essentially, you have a listener that handles all the input events. And when you scan a barcode, it sends a sequence that is easy to identify. So you have a single string with a EAN code that always has the same length, and it's finished with an enter. So you simply parse that. For the 5.
A quick question. Is more related to the device, not the other, but so where I came from is like really super hot. So this is the kind of device like the Pi 5. Which temperatures does this allow?
I mean, the CPU itself consumes up to 15 watts. But even in a simple example like this, it has a standard laptop blower style cooler.
Okay.
That is PWM controlled. And the cooler costs $4. So it's like cheap.
Yeah, I mean, mainly because when I come from, we can be like 45, 50 degrees on the street. Okay. So if you place a camera, that's why I was thinking something like...
It will work, and for a fact I tested it, because the devices are sold for Teslas. I have a beta tester in Dubai. So it's like 50 degrees ambient, and it's like the device is rated to operate up to 70 degrees ambient.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Grab a board. Maybe. Oh, yeah.
I'm here. Can you go into detail how you deploy updates to the applications, how you create the ISOs or some images?
You can, if you use the tooling provided by Snap, you get an app bundle, and then you can simply image the Pi with a new version, or you can simply download the package to the device and install it.